Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, are the Kurds about to get their own country? Now that Iraq is in turmoil, is it a good time to push for independence? So I love it when you, our community, you're sending us videos, you're tweeting us, you're sending us Facebooks, Vines, Instagram. You have been busy in the last 24 hours. Malika Bilal, our digital producer of the stream, what is our online community saying?
A lot. So one of the popular hashtags always online is Twitter Kurds. So we use that hashtag to reach out to the community, and they responded overwhelmingly on the possibility of independence. Have a listen to what they told us.
Independence in southern Kurdistan would serve as a shining example of a newly emerging but increasingly representative democratic entity within the Middle East.
Granting Kurdish statehood is in itself advocating for tolerance and equality within the Middle East.
Kurdistan benefits much further by claiming autonomy rather than independence.
I believe it would become an island of democracy in a region where scholars have long believed that Islam and democracy are incompatible.
We've always been self-sufficient. We've always had our own government. I think we've proven that, we can rule without any war amongst ourselves.
Those are their thoughts on statehood. We want yours. Tweet us with hashtag AJStream.
So joining us in this conversation in the studio, we have Namo Abdallah. And Namo is the Washington Bureau Chief for Rudal. That's a news channel in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. Namo, it's great to have you here in the studio.
Likewise.
I know you watched the show. I'm looking forward to you being in it.
Thank you. Me too. It's amazing to be with you guys. It's
excellent. All right, so we will start the conversation in just a moment.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kavyer Ömer, a Kurdish woman. I'm a student at the American University of Iraq, Suleymaniye. I'm in the stream.
The Kurdish people are considered to be one of the world's largest ethnic groups, but they don't have a country. For decades, many have enjoyed semi-autonomy in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. What they really want, though, is their own state, and there are signs this might actually happen. The president of the Iraqi Kurdish region, Masoud Barzani, has said that with the ongoing chaos in Iraq, he wants to formally separate from the rest of the country. He's asked Parliament to set a referendum date for independence. Now, this comes after the Kurds militias took the disputed oil-rich city of Kirkuk after the Iraqi army fled from the Islamic State fighters. So with chaos in Iraq's government, is this a good time for Kurds to ask for their own state? To help us talk about this, we're also joined by Faisal Harami. He is a Kurdish journalist in Suleymaniye in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. Lawen Azad is the former host and producer of a television show called Inside Kurdistan Extra. And later we also hope to be joined by Dinda Zebari. He is the deputy head of the Department of Foreign Relations in the Kurdistan Regional Government, or KRG. So it's great to have everybody here in the stream. Namo, I have a crystal ball. 3 months ago, if I had told you that right now the Kurdish region of northern Iraq would be actively pushing to be independent, what would you have said to that idea?
I think I would thought that you might be crazy.
Yeah.
Because what happened just over the past few weeks is just incredible. Like a group of radical militants have brought upon a humiliating defeat to the Iraqi army. Like more than 20,000 Iraqi armed forces were defeated by just a few hundred militia, like militants, Islamist militants from known as ISIS or the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. This was not expected for many people, but not for us, the Kurds, because the Kurds have seen Iraq's army defeated many times. For example, in 1988, it lost an 8-year war to Iran. In 1991, it lost much of northern Iraq to us, to the Kurdish rebels, including my father, who was one of the rebels back then, driving out Saddam's forces. And also, in 1991, also it lost the second Gulf War, the first Gulf War in Kuwait, to the United States and Allied forces. So the point I'm trying to make here is the Iraqi army. The defeat of the Iraqi army was not a conventional defeat. It was not caused by the lack of ammunition or imbalance in size. It was rather caused by the lack of will. Iraqi soldiers do not have the will to fight for a government that they think it doesn't represent them. The Iraqi government currently we have is a sectarian government ruled by a man who's who can be as bad as really Saddam Hussein, who killed more than 182,000 Kurds, razed thousands of villages, including my birth village, to the ground. The Kurdish people do not see themselves represented in Iraq, neither the Sunnis nor the Christians, who are fleeing in mass numbers to the Kurdistan region, because it's the only safe region in Iraq where they can be safe, where they can go practice their masses and their religious practices.
Lowen, how surprised were you? Namo here, he said he was totally shocked by the situation that the Kurdish region of northern Iraq is now finding itself in, where it might actually be possible for you to break away from the rest of Iraq. That idea, that premise, is that shocking for you right now, to be right here as a possibility?
I don't believe it's shocking. I think it's something that's always been in the background of Kurdish politics for a very, very long time. It's not something new that we want. But I think with the insurgency and the ISIS into Mosul and the way the situation is escalated, I think it's within reach. It's now a very tangible prospect that Kurds could gain independence, hold a referendum. Today, President Barzani is going to has asked for a referendum date to be set. So it's not just what was once upon a time a theory. I mean, we've heard this in the past from President Barzani, the idea that we will break away should things not be resolved. But this time it's very tangible, it's very real, and it would seem it's very imminent that, you know, the possibility of independent Kurdish state.
Well, Fazil, I want to bring you in here because online a lot of people are echoing what we just heard from Namo about frustration at Arab and Iraqi leaders. This is from Amoka on Twitter. She says, "We gave Iraq and Arab leaders every chance, and all we got was marginalization." Another person, Kardo, says, "We always wanted independence, but Baghdad promised us a lot and delivered nothing." And this last one is a video comment that sums that up. I'd like you to have a listen and let me know what you think.
I personally, as a Kurd, would love for Iraq to break apart. It seems that we are very close to it, and I really hope it happens sooner than later. The reason why we want this is because Kurds, we are one step closer to having even one part of Kurdistan to be liberated, and we have been wanting this since Iraq was basically created. We see it as a zombie nation. It's a Frankenstein. It's something that the colonials created. It's not what we are and what we want to be a part of.
So Fazil, do you feel as she does that you're one step closer?
I think Kurds in Iraqi Kurdistan are one step closer to independence. But as President Barzani said today, the Kurdistan regional government is going to be helping the Shiites and Sunnis to get out of this crisis that Iraq is in. So it's not that the Kurds want to just declare independence and leave Iraq beside, and they want to help to get this crisis sorted and then perhaps declare independence. But I spoke to some MPs today in front of the parliament, and most of them, I spoke to 3 people from 3 different political parties, and all 3 of them said that we support the Kurdish independence, but one of them cautioned and said that we need to prepare for declaring independence, and that may take up to 1 year. The issues that he raised, the difficulties that we have in Kurdistan right now, we're relying on Turkey to export oil, and you know, it's a possibility that Turkey may stop its relations with Kurdistan. And at that moment, because Kurdistan is a landlocked country, there is no other option to export oil. Iran has already said that they're against Kurdish independence. Syria is in a mess. The rest of Iraq is in a mess. So there needs to be some preparation,
right?
And that's what the MPs told me, and that's what I think it should happen.
All right, so let me just play something for you. This is President Barzani talking about the oil-rich region of Kirkuk and why it is now under Kurdish control. Have a listen to this.
We have been patient for 10 years with the federal government to solve the problems of these disputed areas. There were Iraqi forces in these areas, but they left, and then there was a security vacuum. Kurdish Peshmerga forces when to fill this vacuum to avoid them to fall into terrorist hands.
So that was a press conference last week. I want to bring in Dindar Zabari. He's the Deputy Head of Foreign Relations for the KRG. Dindar, what is the situation in Kirkuk right now?
I believe Kirkuk, first of all, a Kurdish populated area, has been fully under the control of, right now, since the beginning of the crisis, under the security forces of KRG. And Kirkuk has always been under the, let's say, administration, joint administration in some areas of it, but basically the city of Kirkuk was under the administration of KRG. What I mean by KRG, the Kurdish element in Kirkuk, which has been in partnership with other communities inside Kirkuk. So what has been changed so far, I believe some areas beyond the control of Peshmerga forces at the beginning of the June has been liberated, or I might say, liberated from some of the terrorist groups if they have to come to station themselves there. So Kirkuk has been a key factor of stability, not only for this recent crisis, but again for the years of Iraqi history, and following the 2005 constitution of Iraq, which.
All right, so Dindar, let me just show people a map, because you're very familiar with your home region, but others may not be. So this area here, behind this green line here, was officially the limit of Kurdish territory between 1991 and 2003. So all this area that's tan here, it expanded somewhat, but now we're looking at areas here with the orange dots that are also now Kurdish held. Do you have any intention of giving this back, or does this belong to Kurdish Iraq now? Dindar.
Yes, it's not to, the question is not to get it back or to turn it back. The question is, we are in the process in Iraq, the process of normalization of situation in Iraq for the last 10 years. Baghdad neglected to implement 68 articles of the Iraqi constitution, including 140 article of the constitution. United Nations also, in its own on a yearly basis, been demanding Iraq to implement Article 140 and to recognize the federalism in Iraq. The neglect from Iraq and denial from Baghdad authorities to implement the constitution of Iraq has resulted to this situation in these areas. I believe these areas, the situation has come around for the KRG to step in terms of the normalization and census possibly, and then definitely for referendum.
Okay, now you mentioned Article 140. It's part of the Iraq Constitution. Have a look on my laptop, and I'm just going to give you a very brief explanation of what it is. It's part of the normalization of Kurds that during the time of Saddam Hussein, they were pushed into becoming more Arab as opposed to being more Kurdish. There's a census and a demographic that has to be done to make up the idea of who's in the province, and then finally a referendum to determine the status of disputed territories. So that's the idea of what Article 140 is. Malika.
I just want to share some of the things we're getting. This is from Ramzia. She says, we've sacrificed enough and we're already run as a semi-autonomous country, so let's make it official and put it on the map. But on the other hand, there are people raising some challenges. So Namo, you mentioned this a little bit earlier at the top of the show. This person says the current political climate and chaos in Iraq makes the timing wrong. The entire nation should be stopping ISIS, as he calls it, and it's the group that's now known as the Islamic State. Do you think that's correct?
Well, that's certainly an argument that many people are making now. But the problem is, the Kurdish people don't want to be dragged into a sectarian war, because they don't see this just a group of terrorists fighting the Iraqi government. Now many Sunnis actually now feel they want to be ruled by this vicious militants than being ruled by a Shia government in Baghdad. So you see, like, the grievances of the Sunnis and the cause of this Islamist militants are kind of mixed now. Now the Kurdish fighters don't want to be dragged into this conflict. At least that's what they're telling me. That's one thing. And the second thing is, as even John Kerry and the United States and other foreign countries have stressed it, the solution in Iraq, if there is one, is a political solution. The government of Nouri Maliki has to be more inclusive. It has to recognize that the Sunnis are an integral part of the Iraqi government. It has to recognize that the Kurds are an important part also of the government, and it has to share power with them. But he has not been willing to do so over the past 8 years. Let me tell you one fact. Do you know that the Prime Minister of Iraq holds the three top security positions in Iraq? He's the Minister of Interior, he's the Minister of Intelligence, and he's the Minister of Defense himself. He's also, of course, Prime Minister. Why? Because he doesn't trust anybody else. That's as simple as that.
Right, but the President and the Foreign Minister are Kurdish. Let me just bring in Fazel. Fazel, what did you want to add?
I think the one question that we need to ask ourselves is, it appears like from the way the Iranians, the Americans and the Kurds are talking, and also Saudi Arabia, that Maliki will not stay in power. The question that we, like as Kurds in Iraqi Kurds, need to ask ourselves is, if Maliki goes, are we still going to be part of Iraq, or are we just going to stay out of it regardless of who's in power?
What do you feel the answer to that question might be? I know you're out on the street, you're talking to people. What is the sense that you're getting?
I mean, from the people that I've spoken on the street in like Kirkuk, in Suleimania, in Erbil, I would say that overwhelming majority of people want independence. Some people go as far as saying that we want to have nothing to do with Arabs in Iraq. Let them, get on with their like sectarian war, but we want to go our way. We've had a like semi-state for the last since 1991. We've established some institutions. We are a viable state, and we can go our way. But I think in terms of like politically, as Namo said, the solution is political. I think it'll be risky. And President Barzani today said that declaring independence and going that way is a risky business. And there are risks in declaring independence. I think what the Kurdish politicians need to do is they need to help to stabilize Iraq. And through that process, if the Kurds in northern Iraq get their rights in terms of
all right, Fazel, take a breath for a moment, because I can't resist this. You're actually sitting next to, literally, kind of virtually, next to an Iraqi politician, because we can do that on the stream, and a Kurdish politician. What would you do if President Maliki actually steps down? Prime Minister Maliki steps down, excuse me. Dindar.
Are you asking me or Dindar?
To Dindar, yes.
Yes. Yeah. I believe, if I understood correctly, the issue is not, frankly, totally to do with Prime Minister Maliki. I think Prime Minister Maliki has been an element of dissatisfaction and differences inside Iraqi politics. But I believe it goes beyond that, which is the mentality governing in Baghdad. The majority or one-side vision of the governing system in Iraq. We are in the process of transition. 10 years passed and Iraq has not succeeded in implementing 68 articles of the Iraqi constitution.
Yes, Dindar, I understand that. You made that point very clearly. So what would you do? What would you do next? What is the plan that you can actually share with us?
Yes, I believe the plan will be on two-side options. The first one will be for the decision to be made by the people of Kurdistan. The people of Kurdistan will have to decide in a kind of referendum, decided possibly the date must be decided by the parliament, and of course through the proper commission, through the proper commission of election that has to be come up on the bill from the parliament of Kurdistan. The second option will be differently. It's the confederation in Iraq, I believe. This is possibly my personal view, but I believe confederation can be also a solution if we have a consensus in Baghdad, a political transition, and of course the satisfaction from different three main communities in Iraq.
Malika.
Lewin, I want to bring you in here with a question online. This is on Twitter. Davey says, how it affects Iraq is one question, but how the independence of one Kurdish entity influences Kurds in Iran, Kurds in Syria, and Turkey is just as important. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think initially this was a concern maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in particular in relation to Turkey. I don't believe that's the case any longer. I mean, just a few days ago, maybe last week, the Turkish government said that it was the Kurds' right to self-determination. I mean, that just goes to show you the strides that the Kurdistan regional government has made with its neighbors, in particular Turkey, although Turkey has some way to go with its own Kurdish population in their country. But it just goes to show that some of the neighboring countries are more willing to the idea of self-determination. Iran's objection to a Kurdish, independent Kurdish state has a lot to say about its influence in Iraq and its closeness with the Maliki government, with militias such as Muqtada al-Sadr, and those politicians. I feel its grip on Iraq will be lessened if Iraq is partitioned. Syria, I believe, with the chaos that's going on, with the havoc that ISIS has wreaked, is not in a real position to object to the creation of a Kurdish state. And I just want to point out also that since 2003, the Kurdish politicians and Kurdistan has made many concessions. From 2003, there was the idea to break away and become independent, but they did not. They decided to stay within Iraq, try to have an inclusive unity government, to have a stable country that they could all prosper and live in. This has deteriorated over the years, and it has to be noted that the cause of the havoc has been the sectarian violence. It's been Sunnis and Shias, and Kurds have been on the outskirts. They haven't been involved, and I think this is one of the reasons they don't want to be dragged in again.
Right.
They've been great playmakers within the political system, helped greatly with the constitution. And with the issue of Kirkuk that you mentioned, I don't think it's an issue of them giving it back. There was no one to protect the citizens of Kirkuk when ISIS, who are now fighting, for example, the counterterrorism groups or the security apparatus of the KRG, there's no one else to defend the people. Right. They're there merely for protection.
So, Luwain, what I'm hearing is from actually everybody on this show right now is an appetite to be separate from the rest of Iraq. Have I got that right? Am I getting that feeling right? Is that the sense that you're getting too?
Yes, I mean, I think that the problem is people, I mean, the international community, in particular the US, is asking the Kurds to stay a part of Iraq and play a role. But this is not a war for Kurdistan. It's a sectarian issue. It's a terrorism issue that Maliki himself cannot solve. So whether him stepping down will resolve this crisis, I don't know. I mean, one of the first things he said to the civilians in Mosul was for them to take up arms when the Iraqi army defected, left. So, you know, I think independence comes out from opportunities like this, and I don't think we'll get many more. So I believe that Kurdistan should seize the moment and do what it can and hold the referendum.
Wow. See, Namo, when I said to you, if I told you 3 months ago this was happening, you said I would think you were crazy. Okay, 2 months from now, what do you think?
Well, I don't think independence will happen in 2 months because, as Father said, there needs to be some preparations. You know, more importantly, you need to make sure that your allies are ready to recognize you after you declare independence, because it could be devastating if your neighbor, for example, Turkey, is not willing to recognize you, if it closes the border. Remember, Kurdistan is a landlocked region. You know, how can you export your goods, your oil, your products if Turkey is not willing to keep the border open?
I'm looking at it right now. You've got Turkey and then Iran, Syria, Iraq, the rest of the Iraq to your south of you. So you need allies, definitely. All right. So not in 2 months, but how long? Because I'm wrapping up the show for now until we go to the post show.
It could take by the end of the year. I mean, like
I'll come back and check in with you. That is a bold suggestion. Malika Bilal, what is the online community saying?
I'll give the last word to this tweet from Ali. He says, "This is long overdue. We want to move forward and no longer be marred in the mess that is Iraq. The time has come."
All right, we are taking this conversation online on the post show to stream.aljazeera.com. If you're actually watching on TV, don't worry, because you can also go to the very same webpage and see everything that happened from this point onwards and the post show as well. So let me tell you about our next program, Mein Kampf. It's been called the world's most dangerous book, and we're examining the debate that's happening in Germany right now about when and if to lift the ban in Germany on publishing Adolf Hitler's manifesto. Until then, we'll see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams Online Post Show. We've been talking about the possibility of Kurdish separation from Iraq and whether or not this is the right time given the chaos that's plaguing the rest of Iraq. Interestingly enough, we have a comment from an Iraqi who's not Kurdish.
Exactly.
I'm curious.
Exactly. Well, it's in the form of a video comment, so you can actually have a listen. All of our guests have a listen to this comment from Abad Alawi.
As an Iraqi American, I see so much success here in the United States when different cultures and ethnicities come together and work together. Iraq is one of the few places in the Middle East that has claims to such a diverse heritage. It's unfortunate that the current government is isolating these minorities to such a degree that they wish to separate.
Namo, I see you nodding your head in agreement.
I mean, I couldn't be like in agreement
well,
more,
is there any way around this?
You know,
if there was another leader, if it was not Prime Minister Maliki, if there was another leader who wasn't enacting the policies that people are unhappy with, do you think?
I think the problem has now unfortunately become much bigger than Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. There's been a history of conflicts between different ethnic groups, sectarian like sects, including Sunnis against the Shias, Sunnis against the Kurds, now Shias against the Sunnis. So I think, you know, it's difficult to heal this wound at this moment. But you know, as he said, you know, who wants to live in an entirely homogeneous society? That's not an idea that interests me really. I want to live, like, look at America. In New York, I lived in New York for 2 years. I still love it. You have so many people from different backgrounds. But you know, that's unfortunately not the case now in Iraq or, I mean, in the broader Middle East.
Dinda, I want to bring you back into the conversation. What is the biggest challenge before you in terms of getting an independent state? What do you think is, okay, this is top of our list that's going to be very difficult before we get to where we want to get? What is that?
Yes, yeah, I believe the challenge will be on two dimensions, or two ways or means of it, or on two sides of it. First of all is internal unity, and I think KRG has been very much successful, especially when it came to the formation of the 8th cabinet just 2 weeks ago, that had the broader range of the political parties' participation in the internal participation of the political platform in KRG. So having this unification and united Kurdish front is one of the greater elements of that success and power inside the internal sovereignty of the KRG. Then if you go to the other side of the other side of the recognition, I believe it's the external recognition. Here also KRG has been quite active on international board, and KRG has been also operating in this exercise of the foreign relationship beginning from 1992. KRG has offices, then is a greater president of international community in Kurdistan region, more than 30 consulate offices from different states, 4 members of the Security Council present in Erbil, United Nations.
Dinda, so I asked you what the biggest challenge is, what the biggest challenge was.
A greater also interaction.
All right, so let me just hold, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you. So biggest challenge was actually Kurds coming together. That is a massive challenge. So I get that. The international, so that's the biggest. It's actually unity amongst yourselves.
I believe the biggest challenge will be to secure the recognition, international recognition. And it has to be not only international recognition, but it must be also regional recognition.
Who is ready to recognize you that you know? Who's your greatest ally right now?
Frankly, I mean, this time is different from years ago. This time there is economic interest. There is also coexistence of the peaceful coexistence.
Dinda, you're such a politician. I was just expecting to hear a country.
It's the success story of KRG in place.
All right, so Dinda, do you not want to mention who's your greatest ally? Who's ready to sign up to independence?
I believe Turkey.
Yes.
I believe Turkey can be an exit policy, and it has been for the years in 90s. Turkey can be an exit policy for the success and secure of the economy, and of course coexistence of this, let's say, de facto statehood in place.
Okay, so Turkey is your best friend right now, and you need a few more in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Malika.
Well, the mention of Turkey brings up, online people are saying that Turkey is being relied on a little bit too much. So Fazil, there's a concern here on Twitter from Amanj, who writes, KRG needs a sustainable economic policy and plan that's not dependent solely on oil in order to go independent. Your thoughts on that, Fazil? It looks like we've lost his connection momentarily. Do you want to pick up on that, Namo?
I totally agree with him. Like oil, being totally dependent on oil is a subject that even scholars talk about. They call that resource scarce. What if like something happens to the price of oil? What if you run out of it? You know, you will be totally, you know, it will be devastating basically for your economy. Kurdistan has a lot of fertile land. Kurdistan is you know, there's so much other things that you can take benefit from, like you can have solar energy, you can, you know, there's so much potential in Kurdistan. I think agriculture, I think the Kurdish government needs to diversify its economy, needs to focus on other sectors of the economy, but unfortunately,
is this realistic, Namo? I mean, this sounds fantastic on this show, but is this
but not in the short term. You know,
all right, so we're talking what, a couple of decades?
Our struggle now is survival. We need to sell our oil. We need to make the money. We need to live, basically.
I have to show you this map again, because this is what I would be concerned about if I lived in Kurdish-controlled northern Iraq. So on this map, here we see territory held by Kurdish forces. Just around the corner, this is the Islamic State fighters. Yeah. Now, you know, they're heading south right now. Yeah. What if they head back north?
The Islamic fighters are not going to attack Kurdistan, not because they don't want to. They have tried. Okay. They did it in the past, but they know at the moment, for example, it's gonna be a big challenge for them to fight, to have two war fronts, one against the Shias, one against the Kurds. Secondly, the Kurdish Peshmerga forces have a long history of guerrilla warfare. I think they know they will pay a big price if they fight the Peshmerga forces.
All right. Interesting. So there's just the confidence there and knowledge of experience of your own fighters that the Islamic State won't head back up towards you. Okay. I feel, Lauren, go ahead. I'm about to wrap up, but I want to get that thought out of you before I do. Go ahead.
I think just going on to what Namor said, I do think one of the challenges is ISIS eventually turning its attention to the Kurdistan region. For now, it doesn't want to engage in a fight with the Peshmerga forces because they're a very well-trained army. They're loyal, they're dedicated, and they're set on protecting Kurdistan and Kurdish areas. But ISIS' attention at the moment is on Maliki, on Shias, on trying to gain as much ground as it possibly can, but there is no guarantee that it won't, after accomplishing these, should it accomplish them, turn its attention back to the Kurdistan region. And I think that's a real serious and very imminent threat that the Kurdistan regional government does need to take into consideration whether independence goes ahead or not.
Right. I mean, it's almost inevitable. If we have Kurds on the program, they're going to be rooting for their own independent state. I think in your fantasy, you must have already think about what colour passport you would like to have. Loen, what would it be?
I would like a green passport, I think.
Because? Because why?
No real reason. I think green's bright and it's so a green coloured passport would be very nice.
All right, I suspect there are many more important things on your list, Dindar Zubari, Deputy Head of Foreign Relations, but when you get to the point where I know you're pushing towards, where you have an independent state, what colour will your passport be? Would you like it to be?
Yellow.
I won't hold you to this.
It must be a difficult decision for me to say, but I believe the current color of the Kurdish flag, maybe the yellow color, the sun color.
Wow, I will be able to spot a Kurdish passport anywhere at the airport if it's bright yellow. Thank you, Dindar, for being part of this conversation. Thank you, Loen. Thank you, Fazil, as well. And finally, Namo, your passport color would be what in your fantasy?
I think all the colors of the Kurdistan flag.
Wow, that would be very bright.
Right? Yeah.
Very fetching.
Like a rainbow.
Interesting.
It's nice, right?
This is a dream right now. I suspect we will not. This will not be the last time we have this conversation. But thank you very much for being part of the conversation today, Malika Bilal. Our Kurdish community. What are they saying?
Well, they're still chatting. I will give the last word to X, who writes, "There will never be a perfect time for Kurdish independence. The time is rather sooner than later, though.
Okay, thank you everybody. Meanwhile, pushing on to our Monday program, Mein Kampf. It's been called the world's most dangerous book. We're examining the debate that's happening in Germany right now about when and if to lift the ban in Germany on publishing Adolf Hitler's manifesto. It's going to be an intriguing conversation. You'll have to wait until Monday, though, to listen in. Thanks for watching. See you online.